Hey guys, I want to tell you a very special story today. And what's really cool about this story is that I use Easter eggs to tell it. And inside of each of these eggs is a special surprise that helps me tell the story about Jesus and the wonderful gift that he gave for us on Easter. So in the first egg, there is, look at this little guy. It's a donkey. And that donkey reminds me of what we celebrated just this past Sunday. It was Palm Sunday. And Palm Sunday is a time that we remember when Jesus rode into the city of Jerusalem at the beginning of Passover. His disciples had gone and gotten him a donkey, and they threw their coats over his back, and he rode into the city, even though that he knew that the story was going to change for him in just a few days. That very first day when he rode into the city, all the people in the crowds were yelling, "Hosanna, King!" They were throwing palm leaves on the ground, and they were so excited that Jesus had arrived into town. But then comes our next egg, and this is a pink egg, and inside this pink egg, look at that, it's coins. And in Jesus's time, there actually would have been 30 pieces of silver. There would have been 30 coins. And that reminds us that one of Jesus's disciples, his name was Judas, he had gone and he had spoke with the leaders in the area, and he had said that he could tell them exactly where Jesus was going to be in exchange for money. And so that's exactly what happened. They gave him 30 pieces of silver, and Judas delivered Jesus to them so that they could put him on trial. So now I have a lavender egg. And inside egg number 3 it's a cup. We would call this a chalice. And this little cup reminds me of the Last Supper. See, Jesus knew that he was going to die. And before that happened, he wanted to talk with his disciples. And so they had a meal together. And during that meal, he had told them they were going to drink of the wine and they were going to eat the bread. And he said he wanted them to use those things to remember him. They were going to remember his broken body and the blood that was shed for you and for me. And so they used that meal to do that. So here's my orange egg. This is one of my favorite eggs because this egg has hands in it. And what are those hands doing? Those hands are praying. This is one of my favorite eggs because it tells me through Jesus's example that it's very important for us to pray. See, God had given him a very difficult job. There was going to be something very difficult lying ahead for him. And what he felt led to do was to go and pray to God the Father. That's what we're supposed to do. Jesus showed us with his example that no matter how big the problem is, we can go and talk to him. All right, so my green egg. So while he was there at that garden and he was praying, that's when Judas had brought the leaders and their soldiers to where Jesus was. And so they got their trade-off for their 30 pieces of silver, and they came and they arrested Jesus. Well, when they took him back, and they questioned him, and they did all kinds of things, and they decided that he needed to be punished because he was not being a preacher in the way that they wanted him to be, and he was honestly just making them look bad. And so they wanted to punish him so he would stop preaching. And so I have this little strap. I know it's hard to see on the video, but it's a little piece of leather. It's a leather strap. And what they would have done is they would have hit him with it. They would have whipped him on his back, and it would have left little cuts and scratches on his back. And it would be much worse than even a little spanking that our moms or dads might give us. And they had hoped that by punishing him, he would quit telling people the gospel, and that he would do what they wanted him to do. So here's my yellow egg. Inside my yellow egg, is a circle, and it's really hard to see on this video, but this circle, it's a ring of thorns. And a thorn is a vine that's long, and it has little stickers on it that poke you when you're outside playing on the edge of the yard, or if you're playing in the woods or something like that. They might stick you on your leg when you're walking through there. Well, those soldiers had taken a thorny vine like that, and they twisted it up, and they made fun of Jesus. They said, if your people think that you're so important and you're king to all of these Jews, then we're going to make you a crown. And so they took those thorns and they put it down on his head. And you know how much it hurts when they stick us in our legs? Well, it stuck him in his head, and it hurt. And it wasn't very kind. So my yellow egg here, these are 3 things put together, and they're nails. And these nails remind me of the fact that my Jesus died for me. See, after that trial, Jesus went through many, many other things. They decided that he was guilty. He was just guilty of not doing what they had asked him to do. And so they took those nails and they nailed him to the cross. And he died for you, and he died for me. And so as he was up hanging on that cross, here's my dice. There were these soldiers at the foot of the cross, and they were playing games. They were rolling the dice, and they were playing games. And the winner of the games would get his clothes, get his jacket, get his belongings. They were taking all of his things, and they were just dividing them up and sharing them amongst themselves, because they didn't take it very serious. They didn't think anything of the fact that Jesus was dying, because it didn't matter to them. They didn't serve God the way that we do. So my next egg is a cloth. Because see, at the end of that day, Jesus died. He died hanging on that cross, and they took him down, and they wrapped him up in this cloth, and they carried him to a tomb. A tomb is kind of like when you go to the cemetery, and they might bury your grandma or your grandpa, and we're really, really sad when those things happen. But they would have wrapped him up in that cloth, and they would have placed him in the tomb, and the leaders were so afraid that somebody was going to come along and do something that they had taken a really big rock. It's not like this rock. It was giant. It took 3 or 4 men to put it in front of the door of the tomb. But they did. They rolled it in place. Then they put 2 soldiers there. And they said, nobody's going to come here and mess with this place. And they didn't want anybody near it. Well, after Passover was over, Jesus' mother and some other ladies went to the tomb, and they were kind of like going to say their goodbyes to Jesus. And when they got there, that great big stone that I was just telling you about that took 3 or 4 men to put into place, well, it wasn't covering the door anymore, and the door was open. And the soldiers, they were gone. There was nobody there, except for they saw an angel. And the angel said, why do you look for the living here? And the ladies didn't understand. And so when they went inside, my last egg tells me what they found. Nothing. It was empty. Jesus had rose from the dead. He was no longer in that grave. And when they left, they actually ran into a man in the garden, and they asked him where Jesus had gone. Where was his body? Why would somebody take him? And he turned around, and they realized that it was Jesus. He was not dead anymore. He had rose again 3 days later, just like he had told them at the Last Supper. They were so excited when they found this out that they ran to where the disciples were. And And they told the disciples exactly what they had seen. And of course, they didn't believe them. It just did not seem possible. But just like he did for those ladies, Jesus came and he saw them. And he visited with them back and forth for 40 days. And then he went back to heaven to be with the Father. But he left us a promise that one day he would come back for you and for me. And that one day we would get to live in heaven with him. So over the next few days, it's going to be different for everybody. It's not going to be the Easter that we usually have. It's not going to be about pretty dresses and new suits and Easter hunts and running around with our family and having big lunches. God has given us an opportunity this year to really think about our family. And so I challenge each one of you guys to be thankful for your mom and your dad, your grandma and your grandpa and all those things, because this Easter, that is what is most important. The wonderful gifts that God has given us and the fact that he sent his son to die on the cross for each one of us. And so I want you all to think about that and be happy in that. We're sad because of the things that we're not getting, but we have so much more to be happy about. Happy Easter, everybody.